What if the moon's cruelest gift wasn't the mate bond, but the moment you realize the powerful Alpha King who's pulling you close, kissing your scars, whispering your mind forever, is the same monster who slaughtered your entire family in cold blood? Imagine you're an Omega, broken, grieving, surviving on rage alone. One full moon night, the bond snaps into place. Your heart races, your body burns. You look up, and it's him, the Alpha King, the one whose orders lit your home on fire, the one who watched your parents and siblings burn, and now fate says he's your soulmate. What could you do if it was you? Tell us in the comment section. Chapter 1. Shadows of the Moonlit Hunt. The full moon hung low in the sky like a silver blade, casting an ethereal glow over the dense forest that bordered the ancient packlands. Lyra crouched in the underbrush, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and fury. At 22, she was the last of her bloodline, an Omega, who had survived the massacre that claimed her family 5 years ago. The memories haunted her, flames licking at the wooden cabins, snarls echoing through the night, and the metallic tang of blood that still made her stomach churn. She had been away that fateful evening, gathering herbs for her mother's healing rituals, only to return to ashes and silence. Now she lived on the fringes, a rogue wolf scraping by in human towns during the day. But tonight, the pull of the moon was too strong. Her wolf form itched beneath her skin, demanding release. She shifted seamlessly, her lithe gray fur blending with the shadows as she prowled deeper into the territory of the Silver Claw Pack, the very pack ruled by the Alpha King who had ordered the slaughter. Ronan Blackwood, they called him. The name alone sent shivers down her spine, a blend of dread and something darker, more primal. Lyra's paws padded silently over the mossy ground, her senses heightened. The air was thick with the scent of pine, earth, and him. A dominant musk that wrapped around her like a vice, stirring her wolf in ways she couldn't ignore. Mate, her inner beast whispered, but she shoved it down. Impossible. She was here for reconnaissance, to uncover the truth she'd pieced together from whispers among rogue wolves. Ronan had led the raid himself, driven by a secret that bound his pack in ironclad loyalty. As she crept closer to the pack's central clearing, voices drifted on the wind. A gathering was underway. Wolves in human form circled around a bonfire, their eyes reflecting the flames. Ronan stood at the center, towering and imposing, his broad shoulders straining against a black shirt, dark hair tousled by the breeze. His golden eyes scanned the crowd, commanding respect without a word. Lyra's breath hitched. Even from afar, his presence was intoxicating, a magnetic force that made her body hum with unwanted desire. She inched forward, hidden behind a thick oak, when a twig snapped under her paw. The world froze. Ronan's head whipped toward her direction, his nostrils flaring. "Intruder!" he growled, his voice a deep rumble that vibrated through her bones. Panic surged, but Lyra didn't flee. Instead, she shifted back to human form, stepping into the moonlight with her chin held high. Her simple dress clung to her curves from the damp night air, and she felt exposed, vulnerable, yet defiant. The pack turned as one, murmurs rippling like waves. Ronan's eyes locked onto hers and time shattered. The mate bond snapped into place, a golden thread igniting between them. Heat flooded her veins, a sweet ache pooling low in her belly. His scent enveloped her fully now, leather, smoke and raw power, making her knees weaken. No, she thought desperately, not him. He crossed the distance in 3 strides, his hand wrapping around her arm with possessive firmness. "Who are you?" he demanded, but his voice softened, laced with wonder. Up close, he was even more striking. Chiseled jaw, full lips, and a scar running down his neck that begged to be traced. Lyra yanked free, her aggressiveness flaring like wildfire. She'd trained for this, honing her instincts into a weapon. "I'm the ghost you created," she spat, her voice trembling with rage. But beneath it, the bond pulsed, urging her to submit, to melt into his touch. She fought it, baring her teeth in a snarl. The pack tensed, but Ronan held up a hand, silencing them. His gaze roamed her face, her body darkening with hunger. "Mate," he murmured, the word a caress that sent shivers racing across her skin. He stepped closer, his breath warm against her ear. "You've been hiding from me." Her heart raced, a storm of emotions crashing within. Sadness for her lost family, worry for the danger she courted, and an unwelcome happiness at the connection she'd craved in her loneliest nights. But revenge burned hotter. She pressed a hand to his chest, feeling the thunder of his heartbeat match hers. You don't know what you've unleashed, she whispered, her voice husky despite herself. In a blur, he pulled her against him, his lips crashing down on hers in a kiss that was pure dominance and desperation. Lyra gasped, her body betraying her as she arched into him, her fingers tangling in his hair. The kiss deepened, tongues dancing in a heated tangle, his hands roaming her back, igniting sparks wherever they touched. She tasted salt and fire, her wolf howling in ecstasy. It was wrong, so wrong. But the mate bond made it feel like destiny. She broke away, panting, her lips swollen and tingling. This changes nothing, she hissed. But her eyes betrayed the conflict. The lovely pull toward him warring with the sadness of betrayal. Ronan's expression shifted from desire to concern. Tell me your name. Lyra, she said, the word slipping out before she could stop it. Lyra Voss of the Moonshadow Pack. His face paled, recognition dawning. The pack murmured, and one elder stepped forward. A grizzled wolf named Garrick, who had witnessed the killing years ago. Garrick had been Ronan's second that night, the one who had seen the Alpha King's blade claim Lyra's father in a mercy kill, or so the pack believed. But the secret ran deeper. Ronan's pack harbored a curse, an ancient blood pact with dark spirits that demanded sacrifices from rival packs to maintain their strength. Lyra's family had been targeted not out of malice, but to appease the shadows that whispered in Ronan's dreams, threatening to consume his people if he failed. Ronan gripped her shoulders, his touch electric. You shouldn't be here. It's dangerous, Lyra laughed bitterly, shoving him back with surprising force. Her aggressiveness intensive, fueled by years of pent-up grief. She lunged, shifting midair into her wolf form, snapping at his heels before darting into the trees. The chase was on. Ronan shifting seamlessly into a massive black wolf, his paws thundering after her. The forest blurred as they ran, the bond turning the pursuit into something erotic, charged with tension. Every brush of branches felt like a lover's caress, every growl a promise. He caught her at a waterfall's edge, tackling her gently to the mossy bank. They shifted back, bodies entangled, clothes torn. You're mine, he growled, pinning her wrists above her head, his body pressing against hers in a way that made her gasp. The steam between them was palpable, his hardness against her thigh, her nipples peeking under the thin fabric. Lyra writhed, half fighting, half surrendering. You killed them, she accused, tears mixing with the spray of water. My parents, my siblings, gone because of you. His eyes flashed with pain. It wasn't what you think. The curse, our pack's secret, we had no choice. She bucked against him, her aggressiveness peaking as she flipped them, straddling his hips. Her hands clawed at his shirt, ripping it open to reveal sculpted muscle. Liar, she breathed, but leaned down, capturing his mouth in a fierce kiss. Their bodies moved in rhythm, grinding with urgent need. His hands slid under her dress, fingers teasing her thighs, inching higher until she moaned into his mouth. The waterfall roared around them, mirroring the torrent inside her. Sadness for her loss, worry for the future, happiness in this forbidden connection, and a lovely warmth that made her feel alive. But as his touch grew bolder, stroking her core through damp fabric, she pulled back, chest heaving. Not yet, she whispered, standing on shaky legs. You owe me answers. Ronan rose, eyes smoldering. Then come back with me, let me show you. Lyra hesitated, the bond tugging her forward. But revenge simmered, a plan forming in her mind. A month. She'd give it a month to uncover the full truth, to get close enough to strike. Little did he know, her aggressiveness wasn't just instinct. It was a blade honed by real-life betrayals, like the women she'd met in human shelters. Survivors of abusive partners who rose up to claim their power. As they walked back, hand in reluctant hand, the moon watched, casting long shadows over their uncertain path. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Den. The walk back to the heart of the Silverclaw territory felt endless, yet far too short. Lyra's hand rested in Ronan's, not willingly, not fully surrendered, but held there by the invisible tether of the mate bond that refused to let go. Every brush of his fingers against her palm sent a quiet tremor through her. Not the wildfire rush of earlier, but something slower, deeper, like warm honey spreading through cracked stone. She hated how comforting it felt. She hated more how much she wanted to lean into it. The pack houses rose ahead, timber and stone structures glowing softly under strung lanterns. Wolves watched from porches and shadowed doorways, their eyes curious, wary, some openly hostile. Lyra kept her chin lifted, refusing to shrink. She had survived worse than stares. Ronan led her straight to the Alpha's residence, a sprawling lodge at the center, its wide veranda overlooking the clearing. He didn't speak until they crossed the threshold, and the heavy oak door closed behind them, muffling the night sounds. Inside, the air smelled of cedar, aged leather, and the faint trace of wood smoke. A massive stone fireplace dominated one wall, embers still pulsing red. Ronan released her hand only to gesture toward a deep armchair near the flames. "Sit," he said, voice low. "You're shaking." "I'm not shaking," Lyra snapped, though her limbs did feel unsteady. She crossed to the chair anyway, not because she wanted to obey, but because standing suddenly seemed too exhausting. The cushion swallowed her, soft and warm from the fire. She hated how good it felt. Ronan remained standing, arms folded, studying her like she was both treasure and threat. The scar along his neck caught the firelight. A pale line she suddenly wanted, irrationally, to touch, to ask the story behind. She clenched her fists in her lap instead. "You said you wanted answers," he began. "I'll give them. But first you need to understand something. You walking into this clearing tonight wasn't random. The bond doesn't lie. It chose you. It chose us." Lyra's laugh was brittle. "The bond chose the man who burned my home to the ground. Forgive me if I don't swoon." His jaw tightened. Pain flickered across his features so quickly she almost missed it. "Almost. I didn't burn anything," he said quietly. "I gave the order to end a threat. That's different." "Different?" She surged to her feet again, closing the distance between them until only a breath separated their bodies. "My mother was teaching my little sister how to braid healing sage that night. My father was carving a cradle for the neighbor's unborn pup. They weren't threats. They were family." Ronan didn't step back. He met her gaze unflinching. "I know their names," he said. "Every name. I carry them. I've carried them for 5 years." The admission stole her breath. She searched his eyes for mockery, for cruelty. She found only a weary kind of truth. "Then why?" Her voice cracked on the word. "Why them? Why us?" He exhaled, long and slow, as though the answer cost him something vital. "Because the pack was dying." Lyra frowned. "What?" "The Silver Claw has carried a curse since before my grandfather's time. A blood debt to shadows older than any living wolf. Every generation, the Alpha must offer a sacrifice, a life, willingly given or taken in ritual, combat to keep the darkness from swallowing the entire pack. If the debt isn't paid, the land sickens. Pups are stillborn. Warriors fall without wounds. The moon itself begins to dim." She stared at him, horror and disbelief warring inside her chest. "You're telling me my family was... payment?" "Not payment," he corrected fiercely. "A necessary severance. The shadows demanded a lineage strong enough to balance the scales. Your pack, Moonshadow, was known for its healers, its quiet power. The elders believed your bloodline could quiet the curse for a generation. I believed it too." Lyra's knees buckled. She caught herself on the arm of the chair. "You believed it," she echoed, the words tasting like ash. "So you came in the night and slaughtered them." "I came to negotiate surrender," Ronan said. "Your father refused. He fought. He killed 3 of my wolves before I..." His voice broke. He dragged a hand over his face. "Before I ended it quickly, mercifully, the rest..." The fire was set after, to hide the evidence from rival packs who would have used it against us. Tears burned behind Lyra's eyes, hot and furious. She wanted to claw him, to scream, to run. Instead, she stood frozen, feeling the mate bond pulse between them like a living heartbeat. Steady, insistent, loving in a way that made her want to vomit. "You could have warned us," she whispered. "You could have asked." "I tried," he said, and the rawness in his tone almost undid her. "Messengers were sent. Your Alpha, your father, would not hear them. He called it cowardice. He called me a monster." "You are," she breathed. "Maybe." Ronan stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "But I never wanted this. I never wanted you to pay for it." The air between them thickened. Not with lust this time, but with something more dangerous. Recognition. 2 people carrying the same wound, staring at each other across it. Lyra's hand lifted of its own accord, fingertips brushing the scar on his throat. He went very still. "How did you get this?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Same night," he answered. "Your father's last strike." He could have taken my head. He chose my throat instead. A warning, he said. A reminder that monsters bleed too. Her fingers lingered, trembling. The contact sent a soft, aching warmth spiraling. Through her chest, sadness, and longing and reluctant. Tenderness all braided together. She hated him. She wanted to hate him. And yet here she was, touching the mark her own father had left. Feeling Ronan's pulse leap beneath her fingertips like it recognized her. Ronan covered her hand with his, pressing it gently against his skin. I don't expect forgiveness, he murmured. I don't even ask for it. But I will not let you walk out of here thinking I enjoyed what happened. I hated every second. I still do. Lyra closed her eyes, letting one tear escape. Then why keep the secret? Why let your pack believe it was just another raid? Because the truth is worse, he said. If they knew the full weight of the curse, if they knew how many lives it has already taken, they would tear themselves apart looking for someone to blame. Me. The elders. The moon itself. I carry it alone so they don't have to. She opened her eyes and found him watching her with something unguarded, something almost pleading. I'm staying, she said suddenly. His brows lifted. For a month, she clarified, voice hardening. I'll live here. I'll learn your pack. I'll listen to your elders. And when the moon turns full again, if I still believe you deserve to die for what you did, I will kill you myself. Ronan studied her for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. Fair enough. He stepped back, giving her space, though the bond still hummed between them like a taut string. There's a room prepared upstairs, he said. Clothes, food, whatever you need. Garrick will stand guard tonight. He was there that night. If you want his account, he'll give it. No lies. Lyra swallowed. And if I try to run? You won't, he said simply. Not yet. She wanted to argue, but the exhaustion was bone deep now. She turned toward the wide staircase, pausing at the first step. Ronan. He looked up. Don't touch me again unless I ask, she said, not even to comfort me. His expression flickered. Hurt, understanding, acceptance. I won't. She climbed the stairs without looking back, every step heavier than the last. Behind her, the fire crackled softly. In the quiet, she heard him whisper to the empty room, so low she almost missed it. I'm sorry, Lyra, more than you'll ever know. Upstairs, she closed the bedroom door, leaned against it, and let the tears come. Silent, wrenching, full of sorrow for what was lost, worry for what she might yet destroy, and the smallest, most treacherous spark of something lovely that refused to die. Outside, the moon watched, patient and unblinking. Chapter 3, Bonds of Blood. Lyra pressed her forehead against the cool wood of the bedroom door for a long minute after the tears slowed. The room was quiet, too quiet, save for the faint pop of embers drifting up from the hearth downstairs. She could still feel the ghost of Ronan's hand over hers, the steady thrum of his pulse beneath her fingertips. It lingered like a bruise that didn't quite hurt. She pushed away from the door and crossed to the window. Moonlight spilled across the wide sill, silvering the quilt on the bed, the small writing desk, the wardrobe already stocked with clothes in her size. Someone had anticipated her arrival. The thought made her stomach twist, either thoughtful preparation or calculated captivity. She opened the wardrobe anyway. Soft linens, wool sweaters in muted forest greens and deep charcoals, a few dresses that looked practical yet feminine. No restraints, no locks, just choices. She pulled out a thick nightshift and changed quickly, the fabric cool against her heated skin. When she slipped under the covers, the sheets smelled faintly of cedar and something warmer, something that reminded her of Ronan's coat. She buried her face in the pillow and growled low in her throat. Sleep came in fragments, flashes of fire, her mother's scream cut short, Ronan's golden eyes in the clearing tonight. Each time she jolted awake, the mate bond tugged gently like a hand smoothing her hair, whispering, "You're not alone." She hated how much she wanted to believe it. By dawn she was up, dressed in borrowed trousers and a fitted tunic, hair braided tight against her scalp. She wouldn't hide. If she was staying, she would walk these halls like she belonged, even if only to learn every weakness. Downstairs, the lodge was already alive. Wolves moved with purpose, a young beta carrying trays of bread and smoked fish, an elder sorting herbs at the long table, two warriors sharpening blades by the fire. They glanced at her, nodded once. Cautious respect rather than open hostility. Ronan stood near the open double doors that led to the veranda, speaking quietly with Garrick. When he saw her, he straightened, the conversation halting. "Morning," he said. His voice was careful, stripped of yesterday's intensity. Lyra lifted her chin. "I want to see the pack grounds, all of them." Garrick's weathered face creased. "Not wise to parade an outsider so soon." "She's not an outsider," Ronan corrected without looking away from her. "She's my mate." The word landed like a dropped stone in still water. Ripples of attention turned toward them. Lyra felt every gaze, every unspoken question. She met Ronan's eyes squarely. "Then show me," she said. He nodded once. "After breakfast?" They ate in near silence at the head of the long table. Ronan at one end, Lyra beside him. The food was simple but hearty. She ate mechanically, tasting nothing. Every so often his knee brushed hers under the table. Accidental? Intentional? Each contact sent a quiet spark up her spine, a reminder that the bond didn't care about grief or vengeance. It simply was. Afterward, he led her outside. The morning air was crisp, scented with dew and pine. They walked the perimeter paths first, training fields where young wolves sparred, a communal garden bursting with late summer herbs, the healer's cabin with its drying racks of sage and moonflower. Ronan spoke little, pointing out structures, naming pack members who nodded in passing. He didn't touch her, didn't crowd her. He gave her space, and somehow that made the silence between them heavier. At the edge of the territory, where the forest thickened into ancient woodland, he stopped beside a small overlook. Below them, a narrow stream wound through moss-covered rocks. Sunlight fractured on the water like scattered coins. "This is where I come when the weight gets too much," he said quietly. Lyra leaned against the rough bark of an oak, arms crossed. "Does it help?" "Sometimes." He glanced at her. "Sometimes it just reminds me how small one wolf is against something older than time." She looked out over the stream, watching leaves drift on the current. "You said the curse demanded a lineage, my family's blood. Was it specific to us?" Ronan exhaled. "The shadows don't name names. They whisper needs. Strength. Purity. Sacrifice." The elders interpreted. I listened. I was 23. Young. Arrogant enough to think I could protect everyone by losing the fewest. Lyra's throat tightened. "And now?" "Now I know better." He turned to face her fully. "I would undo it if I could. Every night I ask the moon for that mercy. She never answers." The raw honesty in his voice cracked something inside her. Not forgiveness, not yet, but understanding. The kind that hurt more than hatred because it made him real, not a monster. A man carrying an impossible burden. She looked away, blinking hard. "Show me more." They walked on deeper into the woods. He took her to a hidden glade where wildflowers still bloomed despite the turning season. Tiny white stars and violet bells. In the center stood a low stone circle, weathered runes carved into each slab. "Sacred ground," he explained, "where alphas have sworn oaths for centuries, where the curse was first bound." Lyra stepped inside the circle without thinking. The moment her foot crossed the boundary, the air changed. Thicker, warmer, humming against her skin. The mate bond flared bright, wrapping around her heart like a living vine. She gasped softly. Ronan watched her, eyes dark with something unguarded. "It recognizes you." She met his gaze across the stones. "It recognizes us." For a heartbeat, neither moved. The wind stirred the flowers, carrying their scent between them. Sweet. Fragile. Alive. Lyra felt the pull. Not just physical, but emotional. A longing to close the distance. To rest her head against his chest and let the world fall away for one selfish moment. Sadness welled up. For her family. For the boy he must have been when he made that terrible choice. For the woman she might have been if fate hadn't twisted them together. She took one step toward him. Then another. He didn't move, didn't breathe, as if afraid to shatter whatever fragile thing was building. When she reached him, she lifted her hand slowly, palm open. He mirrored her, their fingers brushing. Barely a touch, yet it felt like lightning wrapped in velvet. Neither spoke. They stood like that until the sun climbed higher, until the hum of the bond settled into something quieter, steadier. A promise. Not of love, not yet, but of possibility. Lyra lowered her hand first. I still hate what you did. I know, but I'm starting to see the man who did it. Ronan's throat worked. That's more than I deserve. She turned back toward the path. Take me to Garrick, I want his version, word for word. Ronan nodded. They walked in silence, but the silence felt different now, less hostile, more like two people learning the shape of each other's wounds. They found Garrick in the armory polishing a ceremonial dagger. He looked up as they entered, expression guarded. Girl wants the truth, Ronan said simply. Garrick set the blade down. Aye, sit then. This'll take time. They settled on wooden benches. Garrick's voice was gravel and memory as he began. I was second that night. Ronan gave the order, but I carried the torch. Lyra listened, every word carving deeper lines in her heart. Sadness pooled heavy in her chest. For the lives lost, for the choices made in desperation. Worry coiled tight. Could she ever untangle love from vengeance? And beneath it all, a small, stubborn spark of something lovely flickered brighter. The possibility that healing might not mean forgetting, but carrying the pain together. When Garrick finished, the armory was dim with late afternoon shadows. Lyra stood. Thank you. Garrick inclined his head. Truth's a cold bedfellow, lass. Hope you find warmer company. She glanced at Ronan. Their eyes met, long, searching. Outside, as dusk gathered, a scout burst into the clearing, breathless. Alpha, intruder at the northern border, not one of ours. They're asking for the Omega, by name. Lyra's blood turned to ice. Ronan's hand found hers, instinct, protection, no hesitation. Who? He demanded. The scout swallowed. Says he's from a rival pack. Says he knows exactly who she is and what she's worth to you. Chapter 4. Secrets Unveiled. The scout's words hung in the cooling air like smoke. Lyra's grip on Ronan's hand tightened involuntarily, fingers curling into his as though anchoring herself against a sudden wind. The rival scout stood at the edge of the clearing now, flanked by two of Ronan's border guards. He was lean, silver-haired despite his apparent youth, wearing the dark leathers of the Iron Fang pack. His eyes, sharp, amber, fixed on Lyra with unnerving recognition. Ronan stepped forward, pulling her slightly behind him. The movement was protective, instinctive, and it sent a confusing ripple through her chest. Gratitude tangled with resentment. She didn't need shielding. Yet the warmth of his back against her palm felt like the only solid thing in the world right now. Speak, Ronan commanded, voice low and edged with steel. Who sent you, and what do you want with my mate? The scout's lips curved in a thin, knowing smile. Your mate? He tilted his head toward Lyra. The last moonshadow. The one you thought you'd buried along with her kin. Iron Fang has long memories, Blackwood. And longer ambitions. Lyra felt the blood drain from her face. She stepped out from behind Ronan, chin high. If you know who I am, then you know I'm no longer hiding. Say what you came to say. The scout's gaze flicked between them, calculating. Word travels on rogue tongues. An Omega walks into Silver Claw territory and doesn't leave in chains or a shroud. Curious. Profitable, some might say. My Alpha offers an exchange. The girl for a share of your northern hunting grounds. Refuse and we take her anyway. She's leverage, a living reminder of old debts. Ronan's growl was immediate, deep enough to vibrate through the ground. Several nearby wolves shifted restlessly, hackles rising. You will leave my territory with your throat intact only because I allow it. Tell your Alpha if he wants war, he'll have it. But touch her and I will burn Iron Fang to cinders. The scout raised both hands in mock surrender, but his eyes never left Lyra. Bold words for a king with secrets. Enjoy your borrowed time. He turned, melting back into the trees with his escort. Silence fell thick and charged. Ronan turned to Lyra. His face was thunder, jaw locked, eyes blazing. But when he looked at her, something softer broke through. You're not leverage, he said quietly. Not to anyone. She searched his expression. They know about me. About what happened. How many others do? Too many, he admitted. Rumors never truly die, they fester. Lyra's stomach twisted. The fragile thread of understanding she'd begun to weave with him felt suddenly thin, fraying under new pressure. She pulled her hand free. "I need to speak with you. Alone. Now." He nodded without argument. They returned to the lodge in silence, the pack giving them wide berth. Inside, Ronan barred the door behind them. The fire had been stoked. Golden light danced across the walls. Lyra paced before the hearth, arms wrapped around herself as though holding pieces together. "Garrick," she said abruptly, "I want him here. I want to hear it from the one who saw it happen. No more filtered versions." Ronan hesitated only a second before stepping to the door and calling down the hall. Minutes later, Garrick entered, still carrying the weight of the armory's shadows on his shoulders. He looked older in the firelight, lines deeper, eyes heavier. "Sit," Lyra said. It wasn't a request. Garrick obeyed, taking the chair opposite the fire. Ronan remained standing, arms crossed, a silent sentinel. "Tell me everything," Lyra demanded. "Every moment. Every word. No mercy for feelings." Garrick exhaled slowly, like a man preparing to open an old wound. "We came under moonlight, quiet. Your father's sentries were good, better than most. But we had numbers and surprise." Ronan tried to parley first. "Rode up alone to the main cabin, called for your alpha. Your father stepped out, unarmed but proud. They spoke. Low. Tense. Your father said he'd rather tie them bow to a curse-driven tyrant. Ronan offered terms. Surrender the strongest of your line as tribute. The rest spared. Your father laughed. Said the moon would sooner bleed than he'd sell his blood." Lyra's breath caught. She could picture it. Her father's steady stance. The way he always squared his shoulders when cornered. "Then it turned," Garrick continued. "Your father shifted, attacked. Took down 2 of ours before the rest closed in. Ronan met him head-on. They fought, claws, teeth, fury. Your father was strong. He raked Ronan's throat open, would have ended him if Ronan hadn't twisted at the last second. Ronan struck the killing blow, clean, through the heart. Your father looked at him, really looked, and said, 'Remember this scar, boy. It'll remind you what mercy costs.' Then he fell." Tears tracked silently down Lyra's cheeks. She didn't wipe them away. Garrick's voice roughened. "The others. The fire was my order. Ronan was bleeding out, barely conscious. I thought to cover the tracks. Make it look like raiders, not us. I lit the torches. The screams, I still hear them some nights. Your mother tried to shield the little ones. She didn't make it far." Lyra turned away, staring into the flames. The sadness was a living thing now, clawing at her ribs. But beneath it, something colder stirred, clarity. She faced Garrick again. "And after? When Ronan woke?" "He raged," Garrick said simply. "Tore through the camp, demanding why we hadn't waited. Blamed himself, blamed me. Took 3 days before he could speak without breaking. Then he buried the guilt so deep even I couldn't reach it. Told us never to speak of the curse again. Said he'd carry it alone." Lyra looked at Ronan. He hadn't moved, but his eyes were glassy, fixed on the floor as though seeing that night replayed in the embers. "You let them think you were cruel," she whispered. "A butcher." Chapter 5. Trials of the Heart. The wind outside rose to a low moan, rattling the shutters as though the forest itself were listening. Lyra remained with her forehead against Ronan's shoulder, the journal's words still burning behind her eyes. The Alpha's own heart to break the cycle. She felt the steady rise and fall of his breathing, the quiet thunder of his pulse under her palm. For the first time since the clearing, the mate bond didn't feel like chains. It felt like shared gravity, pulling 2 broken orbits into uneasy alignment. She stepped back slowly, needing air, needing distance to think. Ronan let her go without protest, though his hand lingered a heartbeat longer than necessary before falling away. "I need to see the elders," she said. "Tonight. All of them." His brows drew together. "It's late. They'll be in their homes resting. Then wake them." Her voice was steel wrapped in velvet. If I'm to decide whether you live or die when the next full moon rises, I won't do it on half-truths. I want them in the Great Hall, now." Ronan studied her for a long moment. Something flickered in his gaze, respect, perhaps, or the first faint dawn of pride. He inclined his head once. "As my mate wishes." He moved to the door, opened it, and gave quiet orders to the beta waiting outside. Within minutes, the lodge stirred like a waking beast. Footsteps echoed down corridors. Low voices carried on the night air. Lyra didn't wait for an escort. She walked ahead of Ronan through the dimly lit halls. shoulders squared, braids swinging like a pendulum counting down to judgment. The great hall was already filling when they arrived. Long trestle tables pushed back, benches arranged in a rough circle around the central fire pit. Flames roared high, fed by fresh logs. The elders took their places one by one. Gray-muzzled wolves with eyes like chipped flint. Females whose hands still bore the calluses of old battles. Males whose scars told stories longer than any chronicle. Garrick was there too, standing near the back, arms folded, expression unreadable. When the last elder settled, silence fell heavier than the smoke curling toward the rafters. Lyra stepped into the circle of firelight. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "I am Lyra Voss," she began, "last of Moonshadow, mate to your alpha by the moon's own hand, and I have questions the journal in your library couldn't answer." Murmurs rippled. One elder, an ancient female named Mara, leaned forward, silver hair gleaming like frost. "Speak them, child." Lyra met each pair of eyes in turn. "Your curse. Your blood debt. You let an entire pack burn so your land wouldn't sicken. You let Ronan carry the guilt alone, so your children wouldn't question the moon's price. But the journal says the cycle ends only when the alpha's heart is given. So tell me, when does it end for him? When does it end for all of you?" The hall went deathly still. Mara's gaze never wavered. The shadows are patient. They wait for the strongest offering. An alpha's life, freely given or taken in ritual, would shatter the pact forever. But no alpha has ever survived the choice. Then why keep paying in other blood? Lyra's words cut sharp. Why not end it sooner? Why let my parents die for a delay? An elder named Torin, broad-shouldered despite his age, answered, "Because we were afraid. Afraid the shadows would take everything if we refused. Afraid the pack would fracture if the truth spread. Ronan was young. We leaned on him. He bore what we could not." Lyra's hands clenched at her sides. Sadness surged through her, deep tidal, for the girl who had once braided flowers into her sister's hair, for the boy who had stood alone under moonlight and chosen slaughter over surrender. Worry coiled tighter. If Ronan offered his heart, would the shadows truly be satisfied? Or would they simply hunger for more? She turned to Ronan. He stood at the circle's edge, silent, letting her lead. His eyes were steady on hers, unguarded in a way that made her chest ache. "You've carried this alone long enough," she said, voice softer now but no less fierce. "No more secrets. No more half-measures. If we're to break this curse, we do it together, or not at all." A ripple passed through the elders. Mara rose slowly, joints creaking like old branches. "You speak with the fire of your mother," she said, "and the steel of your father. We have hidden too long. The ritual to end the debt requires 3 things: the alpha's willing heart, a witness of untainted blood, and the moon at zenith on the night of sacrifice. The witness must be bound to the alpha by fate, mate, kin, or sworn oath." All eyes turned to Lyra. She felt the weight of them like stones settling on her shoulders. The bond hummed between her and Ronan, warm and insistent, whispering possibilities she wasn't ready to name. Happiness flickered, small, tentative, at the thought of standing beside him, not as victim or avenger, but as equal. Yet the sadness lingered, heavy with the cost already paid. "I won't watch you die for them," she told Ronan quietly so only he could hear. "Not after everything." His jaw tightened. "And I won't let the shadows take you instead." Before either could say more, the great doors burst open. A young warrior, blood on his sleeve, breath ragged, stumbled in. Alpha traitors. 3 of them, caught near the northern cairn with shadow-touched blades. They were chanting, calling the darkness early, said the curse demands payment now. The hall erupted. Ronan moved like lightning, crossing to the warrior in 2 strides. "Where are they?" "Bound in the guardhouse, but one spoke before we silenced him. Said the shadows have grown restless since the Omega arrived. Said her blood calls louder than yours." Lyra's blood turned cold. Ronan's gaze snapped to her, fierce, protective, laced with something raw and unguarded. He reached for her hand. This time she didn't pull away. Their fingers laced tight. "Stay here," he ordered the elders. "Bar the doors. No one leaves until we know who else is compromised." To Lyra he said softer, "With me." She nodded. They strode out together into the night, the wind whipping her braid across her face. The pack grounds felt different now, charged, watchful. Wolves moved in pairs, eyes scanning shadows. Ronan led her toward the guardhouse, a squat stone building at the edge of the clearing. Inside, 3 wolves knelt in chains, 2 males, 1 female. Their eyes gleamed unnaturally, pupils swallowed by black. One snarled when he saw Lyra. "She's the key," he rasped. "Her rage feeds them. Kill her and the curse strengthens. Let her live and it starves." Ronan's growl shook the walls. He stepped in front of Lyra, body a shield. "Who sent you?" he demanded. The female laughed, low and broken. "The shadows don't send, they claim, and they claim you both." Lyra felt her aggressiveness rise, hot, intensive, a storm long contained. She pushed past Ronan, stopping just out of reach of the chains. "Then tell them this," she said, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I'm not running, I'm not hiding. And if they want blood, they'll have to come through me to get his." The prisoner stilled. The male who had spoken earlier tilted his head, studying her. "You'd die for him?" he asked. "After what he did?" Lyra's gaze never left his. "I'd fight for him, there's a difference." Ronan's hand found the small of her back, light, steadying. The touch sent warmth spiraling through her, cutting through the fear. Not passion, not yet, but something fiercer. Partnership. Trust earned in fire. One of the border guards stepped forward. "We found this on them." He held out a small obsidian vial etched with runes. Shadow essence, enough to summon the darkness outright. Ronan took it carefully. "Destroy it. Burn the traitors at dawn. Let the pack see what betrayal costs." As the guards moved to obey, Ronan turned to Lyra. "You didn't have to say that," he murmured. "Stand in front of me like that." "Yes," she answered simply, "I did." For a moment the guardhouse was quiet save for the crackle of torches. Then Ronan leaned down, pressing his forehead to hers, gentle, reverent. "Thank you," he whispered. She closed her eyes, letting the bond wrap around them both. Sadness still lived there. For the dead, for the choices, for the uncertain dawn. Worry coiled tight. What price would the shadows demand next? But beneath it all burned that small, stubborn flame of something lovely. The beginning of belief that 2 wounded hearts might yet mend each other. Outside, the wind howled louder, and in the deepest part of the forest, something ancient stirred, listening. Chapter 6, Flames of Desire. The guardhouse door slammed shut behind them, sealing the traitors' rasping laughter inside. Lyra and Ronan stepped back into the night, the cold biting at their skin like sharp little teeth. The pack grounds were unnaturally quiet now. Wolves withdrawn to their homes, lanterns dimmed, only the patrol fires flickering at regular intervals. Above, the moon rode high, waxing toward full, its light cold and watchful. Ronan's hand stayed at the small of Lyra's back as they walked, not guiding, just present. She didn't shrug it away. The contact grounded her, a steady warmth against the chill that had settled deep in her bones since the prisoner's words. Her rage feeds them. They didn't speak until they reached the lodge. Ronan barred the outer door, checked the windows, then turned to her in the foyer's soft glow. "You should rest," he said. "Tomorrow we question the prisoners again. Dawn execution will send a message, but we need names. Who else is listening to the shadows?" Lyra shook her head. "I won't sleep, not tonight." He studied her, really looked, saw the tremor in her hands, the way her jaw stayed locked to keep her teeth from chattering. Not from cold, from the storm inside. "Come with me," he said quietly. He led her not upstairs, but through a side corridor she hadn't noticed before, down a narrow set of stone steps lit by wall sconces. The air grew warmer as they descended, carrying the faint mineral scent of hot springs. At the bottom, a heavy wooden door opened into a natural cavern. Steam rose in lazy curls from a wide, shallow pool carved by centuries of water. Moonlight filtered through a high skylight in the rock ceiling, turning the water silver. "This is private," Ronan said. "Only alphas have ever come here, and now you." Lyra stepped to the edge. The heat kissed her face, loosening the knot in her chest just a fraction. She kicked off her boots, rolled up her trousers, and sat on the smooth stone lip, dipping her feet into the water. It was perfect, warm without burning, soothing the ache in her muscles she hadn't even acknowledged. Ronan sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. He didn't speak right away. He simply let the silence stretch. companionable rather than heavy. After a long minute, Lyra broke it. "When I was a child," she said softly, "my mother used to bring me to a spring like this, smaller, hidden in the hills behind our cabins. She said the water remembered every tear ever shed into it, and it gave them back as strength." I believed her. Ronan listened without interrupting. "I cried there the night they died," she continued. "I didn't know yet. I just felt something break inside me. I sat in that water until dawn, letting it hold me. When I finally went home, everything was ash." Her voice cracked on the last word. She stared into the rippling reflection of the moon, watching her own face waver. Ronan shifted closer. Their arms brushed, deliberate now. "I never had a place like that," he admitted. "After that night, I stopped looking for comfort, told myself I didn't deserve it." Lyra turned her head to look at him. Firelight from the sconces danced across his features, softening the hard lines of his jaw, highlighting the faint scar at his throat. "You still don't believe you do." It wasn't a question. He exhaled, slow and ragged. "I wake up every morning and the first thing I see is your father's face. The way he looked at me when the light left his eyes. Not hate, not fear, just disappointment. Like he'd hoped I'd be better." Lyra's throat tightened. She reached out, hesitant, and traced the scar with one fingertip, light as breath. Ronan closed his eyes at the touch, leaning into it like a man starved for gentleness. "I hated you for so long," she whispered. "It was the only thing that kept me breathing some days, but hate is heavy. And lonely." His hand came up, covering hers where it rested against his neck. He didn't press, didn't pull her closer, just held her there, palm warm over knuckles. "I dream about you now," he confessed, voice rough. "Not the way mates dream, not soft things. I dream you're standing over me with a blade and I'm not afraid. I'm relieved. Because if you end it, at least the guilt stops." Tears stung Lyra's eyes, sharp, sudden. She blinked them back. "I don't want to be your executioner." "Then what do you want?" The question hung between them, fragile as frost. She searched his face, saw the boy beneath the king, the one who'd made an impossible choice and paid for it every day since. Saw the man who'd shielded her tonight without hesitation. Saw the future that might still be possible if they both stopped running from it. "I want to stop carrying this alone," she said. "Both of us." Ronan's breath hitched. He turned his hand, lacing their fingers together underwater. The warmth of the spring wrapped around their joined hands like a promise. "I've never let anyone in," he murmured. "Not really, not after that night." "Then let me be the first." He lifted their clasped hands, pressed his lips to her knuckles. Soft, reverent. No demand, no urgency. Just quiet surrender. They sat like that for a long time, feet dangling in the steaming water, hands linked, breathing in rhythm. The bond between them didn't roar this time. It sang, low, steady, aching, with a beauty that hurt as much as it healed. Sadness still lived there, deep and unerasable. Worry coiled in the shadows, what the traitors knew, what the shadows planned next. But woven through it all was something new, a fierce, tender happiness at simply being seen, being chosen, being together in the wreckage. Lyra rested her head on his shoulder. His arm came around her slowly, careful as though she might vanish if he moved too fast. She let him. For the first time since the massacre, she let herself lean. Above them, through the skylight, the moon watched, impartial, ancient, waiting. Later, hours later, when the steam had thinned and the water had cooled, they climbed the stairs back to the lodge. Ronan paused at her bedroom door. "I'll be right down the hall," he said, "if you need me." She nodded. Then on impulse, she rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his cheek. Brief, feather-light but deliberate. "Good night, Ronan." His eyes fluttered closed for a second. When they opened again, they were softer than she'd ever seen them. "Good night, Lyra." She closed the door, leaned against it, and let a small, trembling smile break across her face. Down the corridor, Ronan stood motionless for a long minute, touching the spot on his cheek where her kiss had landed. Then he walked to his own room, lay on top of the covers, and for the first time in 5 years, fell asleep without nightmares. Outside, the wind had quieted. But in the deepest reaches of the forest, Garrick waited alone at the edge of the sacred glade. He knelt before the rune-carved stones, head bowed. "She's stronger than we thought," he whispered to the night, "and she's waking him up." A faint breeze stirred the leaves, an answer perhaps. Garrick rose, face grim. "She has a right to know," he muttered, "even if it breaks everything." He turned toward the lodge, steps heavy with decision. Dawn was coming, and with it, one last secret that could change the course of them all. Chapter 7. Echoes of Vengeance. The rain followed Lyra and Garrick north like a shroud, but it could not wash away the cold certainty that had settled in her chest during the ride. She no longer felt torn. She felt sharpened. Every mile closer to the village had only made the plan clearer. She would use the one weapon the Alpha King would never expect from his fated mate, his own blind, aching trust. And when the moment came, under the full moon at zenith, she would take from him the part of himself that made him feel most powerful, most untouchable. Two testicle, a permanent intimate mark of justice, a living reminder carved in flesh that some debts are paid not in blood, but in stolen potency. Garrick glanced at her sideways as they rode, sensing the change. "You're quiet," he said. "I'm thinking," she answered. He didn't press. He had seen enough vengeance in his long life to recognize its scent. By dusk on the second day, they reached the modest stone house at the village edge. Lanterns glowed warm behind the windows. A single light burned in the lower room. Garrick hung back with the horses. Lyra walked to the door alone and knocked. 3 soft taps. The door opened. He was taller than she remembered any child could grow. Broad from forge work, dark hair damp with sweat and rain. Gray eyes, her eyes, widening in shock. "Kyle!" The name slipped out like a blade she hadn't meant to draw yet. He blinked. "No one's called me that since the fire. I'm Elias here." Lyra's throat closed. She searched his face and found her father's chin, her mother's steady gaze. The resemblance was a fresh wound and a lifeline at once. "I'm Lyra," she said, "your sister." He stared. Then he looked past her to Garrick in the rain. Recognition flashed. The man who had pulled him from under burning floorboards. "You," Elias said, voice low and rough. "You never came back." "I couldn't," Garrick answered. "Not without dragging hell with me." Elias stepped aside. "Come in, before you drown." Inside smelled of iron, bread, hearth smoke. His adoptive parents stood in the kitchen doorway, watchful, resigned. They had always known this day might arrive. They sat at the rough table. Lyra told him, not everything, but enough. The raid, the curse, Ronan's order. The years she believed she was the last. The mate bond that had forced her to stand close to the man who ordered their parents burned. The ritual looming in 3 days. Elias listened in silence. When she finished, his hands were clenched on the table. "I should hate him," he said quietly. "I do hate him. But if the shadows were real, if they would have come anyway." "They didn't have to come that night," Lyra cut in, voice cold. "He chose the fastest path, the cleanest for him. He didn't negotiate long enough. He didn't try hard enough. He took the easy sacrifice on our family, so his pack could keep breathing easy." Elias met her gaze. "And you're mated to him." The moon has a cruel sense of humor. A long silence. Then Elias asked the question that changed everything. "Are you going to kill him?" Lyra's answer came without hesitation. "No. I'm going to make sure he lives long enough to feel every day what he stole from us. From me. From you." She leaned forward. "I want you to come back with me. Not to forgive, not to heal, to witness. To stand beside me when I take from him what no Alpha should ever lose." Elias studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded once, sharp, final. "I'll ride with you, but if the chance comes, I want my hands on the blade too." Lyra felt something dark and lovely uncoil inside her chest. Not happiness, but satisfaction. A promise kept. They left at first light, 3 riders now. Elias on a borrowed mount, face set like stone. Garrick silent and grim. Lyra in the middle, the mate bond pulling her south toward Ronan like a noose she had tied herself. They reached Silverclaw territory as the sun bled low on the 3rd day. The pack grounds were hushed, torches already lit in a wide circle around the sacred glade. Wolves gathered, faces solemn. Ronan stood at the center of the runestones, shirtless despite the chill, the scar on his throat stark in the torchlight. He looked up as they crested the ridge. His eyes found Lyra first, relief raw and unguarded. Then they found Elias. Ronan's breath caught. He took one step forward, then stopped as though afraid the vision would vanish. Kyle? The name left him like something holy and broken at once. Elias dismounted, walked straight to him, stopped an arm's length away. "You're the one who killed my father," he said, flat, no question. Ronan nodded. "I am." Elias looked him up and down, like slow, deliberate. "Then remember this face," he said, "because you'll see it every time you look down and remember what you lost tonight." Ronan frowned, confusion flickering, but before he could speak, Lyra stepped between them. She took Ronan's hand, gentle, almost tender. The bond flared warm between them, and she let him feel it. Let him believe. "I brought him home," she whispered, "for you, for us." Ronan's eyes glistened. He pulled her close, brief, desperate, forehead to hers. "Thank you," he breathed, "for giving me this." Lyra smiled against his shoulder. Small, secret, lethal. The elders formed the circle. Mara stepped forward with the obsidian ritual blade. "The zenith approaches," she said. "The Alpha offers his heart. The witness of untainted blood stands ready. The mate binds the offering." Ronan knelt in the center of the stones, head bowed, arms open, defenseless. The pack watched in reverent silence. Lyra and Elias stepped forward, one on each side. She took the blade from Mara. Her fingers closed around it like a lover's hand. Ronan looked up at her, eyes full of trust, of love, of hope. Lyra leaned down, lips brushing his ear. "For my mother," she whispered. "For my father. For every scream you ignored." She moved faster than thought. The blade flashed once, precise, merciless. Ronan's roar shattered the night. Blood welled dark and sudden. The pack gasped, surged forward, but Elias was already there, snarling, eyes blazing, holding them back with nothing but presence and rage. Lyra stood over Ronan as he curled on the ground, clutching himself, face contorted in shock and agony. She held up the small bloody trophy so the pack could see. "This is what your Alpha paid," she said, voice carrying clear over the chaos. "Not his heart, his pride, his legacy, his future." She dropped the severed flesh at his feet. Ronan's eyes, one wide with betrayal, pain, dawning horror, locked on hers. Lyra met them without flinching. "You live," she told him softly, "but you'll never forget what it cost to take a family." She turned to the stunned pack. "The curse is broken, not by his sacrifice, by mine." She walked past the stones, head high, blade still dripping, Elias falling in beside her like a shadow made flesh. Behind them, Ronan's broken howl rose to the moon, and for the first time in 5 years, Lyra felt the weight lift, not with forgiveness but with justice finally served in the only currency that mattered. Chapter 8, Dawn of Reckoning. The glade was frozen in the aftermath. Ronan's howl had died into ragged, wet gasps. He remained curled on his side among the runestones, one hand clamped between his legs, the other clawing at the earth as though trying to anchor himself against the white-hot tide of pain. Blood darkened the front of his trousers in a spreading stain, black in the torchlight. The severed flesh lay discarded at his feet, like an offering rejected by the moon itself. The pack stood in stunned silence, hundreds of eyes wide, mouths open, breaths held. No one moved to help him. Not yet. The shock was too complete, the violation too intimate, too unthinkable. An Alpha, brought low not by rival fangs or enemy blade, but by the hand of his own fated mate. Lyra stood over him for one final heartbeat, the obsidian ritual knife still in her grip, slick and warm. She felt nothing like triumph, only a vast, hollow quiet where 5 years of rage had once roared. The bond between them pulsed once, weakly, then began to fray at the edges like a rope burning through. She looked down at Ronan's face, contorted, pale, eyes glassy with disbelief and betrayal. Those golden eyes that had once commanded entire packs now searched hers for some sign that this was a mistake, a nightmare, anything but real. There was no mercy in her gaze. "You took everything from me," she said, voice low enough that only he, and perhaps Elias, could hear. "Now I've taken something you can never grow back. Live with it, Ronan Blackwood. Live long. And every time you look in a mirror, Every time you try to lead, every time you remember what it felt like to be whole. Remember my family. She turned the blade once in her hand, then drove it point down into the soft earth beside his head. A marker, a grave for what had been between them. Elias stepped forward. He had not spoken since the strike. Now he knelt briefly beside Ronan, not to comfort but to look. You'll survive this, he told the fallen Alpha. But you'll never sire another heir. No legacy, no line to carry your name. That's what you stole from us. Now it's yours to carry. He rose, eyes hard, and joined Lyra at the circle's edge. Mara, the eldest, finally broke the paralysis. She stepped forward, voice trembling but clear. The shadows. She looked toward the tree line where the darkness had writhed moments before. They retreated. The offering was accepted, not in blood, but in sacrifice. The curse is broken. A murmur rippled through the pack, fear, awe, confusion. Some wolves dropped to their knees, heads bowed. Others backed away, eyes darting between their broken Alpha and the Omega, who had just unmade him. Lyra raised her voice so all could hear. I came here for answers. I found them. I came here for justice. I took it. She lifted her chin. The Silver Claw pack is yours now. Rule it without him if you can, or follow him into whatever ruin he builds from this. But know this. No more shadows, no more hidden debts paid in innocent blood. That ends tonight. She turned to leave. Ronan's voice, hoarse, shattered, stopped her. Lyra? She paused, back to him. He dragged himself up to one knee, blood dripping steadily onto the stones. His face was gray, sweat beading on his brow, but his eyes still burned with something that might have been love once, or pride, or simply the refusal to die quietly. Why not kill me? He rasped. She looked over her shoulder. Because death is too quick, and you don't deserve quick. She walked away then, Elias at her side, Garrick falling in behind like a silent sentinel. The pack parted for them without a word. Some lowered their eyes in respect, others in fear. A few, younger wolves, ones who had never known the old curse's weight, watched her go with something close to admiration. Behind them, Ronan collapsed again, curling tight around the ruin she had made of him. His second, once Garrick's position, now filled by a stunned beta named Rorik, finally rushed forward with healers. They lifted him carefully, carrying him toward the lodge as the first pale streaks of dawn touched the sky. Lyra did not look back. They rode out before the sun fully rose, 3 horses, 3 riders, heading west toward lands none of them had ever claimed. The bond between her and Ronan stretched thinner with every mile, a fading echo, until it was little more than memory, painful, sharp, but no longer binding. Elias rode beside her in silence for the first hours. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. Do you regret it? Lyra looked at the horizon. Clear now, the rain gone, the world washed new. No, she said. I regret the years I spent hating instead of living, but not this. He'll heal. He'll rule, if they let him. But he'll never be the same. And that's enough. Elias nodded once. They rode on. Behind them, in the Silver Claw Lodge, Ronan lay on sweat-soaked sheets while healers worked to staunch the bleeding, to close what could be closed. He stared at the ceiling, jaw locked against the pain that came in waves. The pack elders gathered outside his door, whispering, debating. Some called for exile, others for mercy. A few spoke of challenge, of a new Alpha rising from the ashes of the old. Ronan heard none of it. He felt only the hollow ache where part of him had been taken, and the deeper hollow where she had once been. He closed his eyes, and for the first time since the night he gave the order that burned Moonshadow to the ground, he wept. Not for the curse, not for the pack, but for the woman he had lost twice. Once by his own hand, and once by hers. Far to the west, Lyra rode into the rising sun. The weight was gone, not replaced with peace, but with something harder, cleaner, vengeance complete. And a life finally her own. If you've just finished listening, Omega discovered her mate Alpha King was the one who killed her entire family after a month unexpectedly revenge. And your heart is still racing from that final blade flash, the blood on the stones, and Lyra's cold walk into the sunrise. Then this story was made for you. Now it's your turn to make your voice heard. Here's what I need from you right now. Drop A if Lyra's revenge hit exactly the way you wanted. Brutal, permanent, no mercy, no forgiveness. Comment testicle justice if that one precise strike was the moment that made you cheer or gasp the loudest. Tell me in one sentence, what did you feel when she held up the trophy and told him live with it? Share this story link with one person who loves dark, vengeful romance. The kind where the Omega doesn't bend, she breaks the Alpha instead. If you want more, an epilogue showing Ronan 5 years later, broken, childless, pack splintering around him. A sequel where Lyra builds her own ruthless pack and comes back for round 2. Alternate ending where Elias finishes what Lyra started. Just type epilogue, sequel, or alt end below. This story only exists because listener like you demanded real vengeance and no soft redemption, no teary forgiveness, just cold, satisfying justice. Don't let it end here. Comment now, share now, tell me what you want next. The moon is still watching, and so am I. Your move.